Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here from Zoobox, and today, for our daily movie review, we're going to be talking about Jackie Chan's 1985 film, Police Story. I actually watched Police Story and Police Story 2. We'll talk a little bit about Police Story 2, maybe at the tail end of this video, just because it would be a little redundant, but there is a few things you could say. So like I said, comes out in 1985. It's directed by Jackie Chan and Chi Hua Shen. Stars Jackie Chan, Maggie Chun, Brigitte Lin, Bill Tung, Ewan Chor, Charlie Cho, and others. The synopsis is: a virtuous Hong Kong police officer must clear his good name when the drug lord he is after frames him for the murder of a dirty cop. So it's an interesting movie. This came about at an interesting time in Jackie Chan's kind of career. He's had like different modes of his career, and because he was raised in the Chinese opera, like going to school for that, so he's like acrobatics, singing, martial arts, everything you could possibly think of. So he starts kind of being a showbiz guy pretty early in his life. I think by the time he's like 17 or 18, he's already in movies and whatnot. And when he did Police Story in 1985, this is after he'd already actually come to America and tried to make American movies. He's in both of the Cannonball Run movies, I believe. He's got like kind of a smaller part in those. He was in. They made a movie for him. I think it's called The Protector. I know there's a later movie called The Protector, but I think that movie was also called The Protector. I could be wrong, but there's some like kind of Western mediocre Jackie Chan movie. They just kind of didn't know what to do with him. Like he couldn't find his footing in the same way that somebody like Bruce Lee had found his footing, because a lot of people treated him like he was kind of the second coming of Bruce Lee just because of his skill level and kind of charisma, but he's just a different beast, you know. Jackie comes from a school of more of like broad entertainment. He's more of a comedian, if you will, a physical performer in a different way than Bruce Lee was. Bruce Lee was about speed and efficiency and ruthlessness. You know, he was the tough guy. He had the come here. Actually, you know what? Wearing a Bruce Lee shirt. But you know, that was who Bruce Lee was, and Jackie Chan he had a hard time, and I think people had a hard time conceptualizing somebody different than that at that time. So it took a few years. So by the time 1985 rolls around, he's kind of had to go back to China with his tail between his legs. He was still pretty popular. He was an international guy even before he went to America. That's what opened the doors to let him go to America, because he was very big in Japan. He was very big, I think in India he was pretty big. A few other European countries. So he does Police Story as kind of a fuck you to everybody. A fuck you to everybody that didn't know what to do with Jackie Chan. So he's like, I'm going to go back to China and I'm going to make the perfect vehicle for myself. I'm just going to do it myself. He had directed a few films before this. So he wasn't like a slouch in that department. And he had kind of already had a team of guys. He had his stunt team, which I believe to this day, or at least until recently, he has a kind of an in-house group of people, and everybody has a kind of a specialization of what they're good at, and they have some great like I don't know what you'd call it, like a kind of a chemistry as performers, like a physical chemistry. And so he comes to Police Story, and he just, you know, I guess spoilers, you know, he knocks it out of the park. It is probably, after watching it recently, I would say it's got to be up there, and if not the best Jackie Chan movie, because it perfectly distills everything you like about Jackie Chan as like the character, the public persona of Jackie Chan, and also every Jackie Chan movie you've ever seen. It has the perfect balance of like kind of the comedy, the melodrama, and also the amazing set pieces. I mean, this movie is just wall to wall with killer set pieces. Just from the beginning, there's this big chase in a bus, and then there's this extended fight scene that goes on that starts like with this guy with Jackie Chan having to pretend to fight his comatose friend, and then there's the great awesome fight in like a parking lot that happens like right after that. It just kind of keeps going, keeps escalating, and then there's this amazing, what feels like, I think it's like a 12 to 15 minute long just extended fight sequence that happens in a mall, and that it just continues to escalate, and it's probably one of the best choreographed fight scenes I've ever seen. And because it had been a long time since I'd seen Police Story, I thought maybe I had never even really seen it, but after watching, I was like, oh no, I've seen this. But since I got it, like I ended up watching it like twice in a couple days. I just was really taken with it. But yeah, it's an amazing, probably one of the best pieces of fight choreography and planning and execution. Because Jackie Chan, he was a movie guy, so he understands kind of camera placement, how to make things register on film. It's not just about the ability of being able to do it. Like he knows where to cut. These scenes are kind of loosely formed. They'll go in kind of a space and they'll kind of improvise it. But they improvise it with editing in mind. They're kind of doing the blocking for the edit. So they'll go in and do like a, 5, 6, 7, 8, like do that move and then cut. Okay. Reaction. Cut in. Another wide. And they do, because they like to have a lot of the more impressive stuff. They like to have it all in one shot because they want to show you that they're doing it. They're not overcutting. They're not trying to hide anything. They're not trying to use editing to create a pace and a rhythm. They're using their actual physical ability to do so. Like just the fight choreography itself is what dictates the cuts rather than the other way around. A lot of times, you watch a lot of modern action movies and the cuts are completely dictated by what an actor can actually do. In the more recent times, I think that people have made an effort to kind of try to ape this style, especially in America. You go look at like something like the John Wick movies, especially. But they're obviously not Jackie Chan in terms of just like physical ability. None of the actors in those movies. I'd like to see Jackie Chan show up in John Wick 4. Why not? Give him one more go. He's pretty old now, though. He's pretty old. But it was a great revisit. I had not seen it in a long time, and I was taken by how well balanced it was. Like it's really a sincerely funny movie. Maggie Chung, who plays like his girlfriend, and she plays his girlfriend in the entire Police Story series, which goes from this one all the way to Jackie Chan's First Strike. That's what it was made in America. That's Police Story 4, actually. And then they reboot the series in like the early 2000s, and Jackie Chan still stars in it, but he plays a completely different character. It was really weird. It's a really weird. I don't know why they did that, but I mean, maybe it was because they was just like, oh, we got to lean more into drama because Jackie's getting old and he still wants to be the face of Police Story. But yeah, so they have like a similar like kind of cast and a trajectory for the character. It's funny. Police Story 1 and 2 are like, direct sequels. Like Police Story 2 literally starts as Police Story 1 ends, pretty much. And then when you get into the later movies, when you get into Police Story 3 Super Cop, we know it as Super Cop over here, and then Jackie Chan's First Strike, those feel like kind of like separate sequels. They're obviously, he's playing the same character and everything, and it's got some of the same broader cast, but they feel very different. They're like more international. They're more like James Bond movies. It's like Jackie Chan's version of a James Bond movie, where these feel a little bit more grounded and a little bit more serious too. They weren't like full-blown comedies yet. While it does have comedic stuff in it, there's scenes that are literally just meant to make you laugh. There's some really fun stuff with Jackie Chan. He gets like demoted and he has to go work in the call center, and he's trying to answer 50 phones at the same time, and he's kick flipping them everywhere and balancing them, and doing all just sorts of funny Jackie Chan stuff. And then he like there's a comedy of errors moment where he's like thinks he's talking to somebody, but he's really talking to his girlfriend. So definitely has moments that are overtly comedic, but they really, really, really lean into it by the time you get to Super Cop. And that's not something that bothers me either, because I think I would have to say probably the first one I saw of the Police Story movies was Super Cop. And for a long time, that was my favorite Jackie Chan movie. Probably that and Rumble in the Bronx. Like, it would be Super Cop, Rumble in the Bronx, First Strike, and then maybe Operation Condor. Those were the ones I was most familiar with for most of my like youth. Used to watch them all the time. But going back to the original, it's impressive, like how well put together it is. It's not as messy as the other ones. It feels just more. It doesn't ever feel boring. Sometimes you can go watch like Super Cop that like really lags in the middle, but not Police Story. And then Police Story 2, they were kind of trying to address some criticism of the first movie. There was, I guess the reviews were like, oh, it's just too action heavy. There's not enough characters, not enough drama. So Police Story 2 is actually more of like overtly dramatic. The stakes are a little bit higher, and it ends in a much more kind of big, dramatic, bombastic fashion than the first one does. The ending of Police Story 1 is a little lower key in a certain respect. One of the things I think that has always attracted me, and I think attracted a lot of people to just these kinds of movies in general, specifically the Jackie Chan ones, is that there are like stakes to the fight scenes. When we have now we just have a meta sense and awareness of the construction of these scenes. Like at the end of the movie, they show you the bloopers as Jackie Chan is singing the theme song for Police Story, because of course there's a theme song, and of course Jackie Chan sang it. But they're showing you the bloopers, all the times they messed up, all the times they got hurt, sometimes more seriously than others. So when you watch a Jackie Chan movie, you know that there are stakes. Even though you're watching kind of a choreographed dance, you know that there are stakes to what you are watching. Like somebody could actually get hurt, and oftentimes do. And it adds like this weird tension to the scenes that I think wouldn't be there otherwise. It makes it all that more impressive. It's one of the few times where seeing kind of how the sausage is made actually benefits the sausage. It makes the sausage taste better just because what went into making it. So it's really cool. Really cool to revisit it. If you have not seen them in a long time, I would definitely say dig them up. I want to go and rewatch Super Cop and First Strike, and then maybe I might do a video like combining those two. Just to kind of just put me in the mood to watch Jackie Chan movies again. I think this happens like every 5 or 6 years. I'm like, oh, I should go watch some Jackie Chan movies, and then end up just plowing through a bunch of them. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for today. Don't know what else much to say. It is what it is. Like it's got what you want from a Jackie Chan film. Like everything that you want from a Jackie Chan film, Police Story contains. Police Story 2, a little less so, but still really good. Super entertaining movie. And well worth your time if you're an action fan. Especially if you've never seen it before, you're probably in for a little bit of a treat, Now we have to ignore Jackie Chan's politics, I guess, in the modern era. Because he's a Chinese guy, and he's a wealthy, rich Chinese guy. He's been a celebrity since he was 17. Like, he feels very indebted to the state. Let's just say that. And there's actually, if you watch his movies throughout the years, his Chinese productions, there's a lot of like state propaganda in it. And I would say, like, especially once you get to like Super Cop, a lot of state propaganda, a lot of it. But that's how all of these stars are. These the Chinese stars. I remember even most recently, whoever is the actress from Mulan, Disney's Mulan. She came out like talking how evil the Hong Kong protesters were and how mean they were to the police, and they need to respect law and order, and yada yada yada. So they're kind of, indoctrinated through success, I guess, a little bit. So I guess you could weigh whether or not you feel like there's some sort of ethical line that you cannot cross by watching Police Story or Jackie Chan movies in general. But I'll let it go. There's a lot of movies I watch by people that are probably total pieces of shit. So there you go. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, you want to keep up with everything Zoobox, there's a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my personal Twitter. Also, if you'd like to make a recommendation for one of these daily videos, or even for the big show, the Zoobox Goes to the Movies, leave it in the comments and we'll put it on the list. Also, make sure to check out the most recent episode of Zoobox and the most recent episode of Zoobox Goes to the Movies, where I talked with the one and only Dan Prophet. We talked for about 2 hours all about Martin Scorsese's kind of underrated gem, Casino. All right, everybody. You have a good one.